Welcome back, Knuckleheads. I'm Lupinefiasco. This is Daily FaB gameplay, and today we are playing Kayo, Armed and Dangerous. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the jungle. What we do here is review replays of games I played on the Talishar.net client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will talk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, walking you through my thought process for the line I would take, and compare that to the line I did take at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns, with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events and walk away with that shiny cardboard. If you'd like to check out the deck I'm playing here or try it for yourself on Talishar, there is a FaB deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see every new episode of Daily FaB gameplay in your YouTube feed. I also have a Discord, a Blue Sky, and a Patreon, links to which are found in the video description. A Patreon sub at the Arc Lightning tier or higher will get you access to the matchup guide for this deck and for every one of my decks forever. Without further ado, let's jump right into the action. I've been pretty open about how I think Kayo has very bad matchups into defensive decks like Scepter Florian, CYB Jarl, maybe CYB New. But he does bring very positive matchups into more of the mid-range Guardian heroes, so Jarl can be built mid-range, and I think for at least the next week, mid-range Jarl does have a better Aurora matchup than CYB Jarl. So if you're bringing Kayo to your Pro Quest and happen to catch a mid-range Jarl, then you are very favored into them. You see Pulping here in my opening hand. I don't think Pulping is great into Jarl, just based on the number of defense reactions he plays, but we are fat stacking in the event that it is CYB Jarl and we just need to go long. And the fact that Kayo has so much redundancy in his cards that his deck is basically all blues and 2-cost 6s means that we aren't really punished by having Pulping here. Sometimes you do open with it, Jarl doesn't have an arsenal, or he doesn't have a defense reaction in arsenal, and if you think he is sitting on a defense reaction, you just don't play Pulping. Or you can block with 2 cards from hand, and then Pulping is your only attack that turn. It attacks for 6, it makes a might on the back end, and it still does some damage. So what Kayo really brings to this matchup is the ability to play around Guardian Disruption, discarding a random card to Pummel, bottoming 2 cards at random to Oakenold, losing an arsenal to Command and Conquer, and in the case of Jarl, having to play through Channel Lake Frigid, are not all that bad for Kayo because he pitches blues to play 2-cost reds. So you can play through a lot of what Jarl is trying to do to us, and what we need to be aware of in this matchup is not using our armor extraneously. If you are breaking your flesh bag, if you're going down to 0 defense on your bone breaker, or if you're blocking with scab skins to give Jarl the opportunity to play frozen to death or hit you with a mangle, you'd better have very good reasons to do it. In general, I don't want to block with armor at all, because I don't want to make Jarl's Unforgetting Unforgivings better by allowing him to tutor mangle. So we're just mostly playing this hand to hand and trying to block from hand when we can, and take damage when that is what we want to be doing. We won the die roll here, we chose to go second. That's a bad idea if Jarl is CYB, but if we catch a mid-range Jarl, then it puts us in a advantageous position. This opening hand is fine. I do want to discard Agile Windup if I can to make an agility, but I don't want to discard Mighty Windup because I want a blue if possible. We're just looking at a Titan's Fist for 4 here. Jarl floating 2 resources. I suspect this is just him attempting to filter the hand rather than advertising a pummel. I mean, I'm pretty excited if Jarl pummels me here because it means that I don't have to deal with a copy of Pummel later. How do I want to block this? I think we can block this with Command and Conquer and discard the Agile Windup to make our agility. We keep a Mighty Windup as a blue. That enables us to pay for our turn. We can pay through Blizzard if Jarl wants to play that in response to our Pulping. And we just take 1 point of damage. It's fine. Drawing into a really nice hand here where we get to play Send Packing. 6 with Go again. I'm not expecting it to hit. and to banish Jarl's arsenal, but we at least get to see what is in the arsenal. More important is we get to follow up with Cast Bones, which, even if it only makes us 5 might, we still have our pulping that we're going to play on our next turn that can potentially have go again. And if it does hit 6 might and we make the agility, then we aren't punished if we open with pulping, and Jarl has a defense reaction in arsenal. So we do hit with the Cast Bones. We see 6 attacks with power 6 or greater. Checking here, I believe it is 3 wild rides, an agile windup. We should have a blue agile windup, so we see both of our agile windups, and there's an E-strike. The top of our deck is a yellow wild ride and a red wild ride. What am I doing with this hand? I would like to play pulping from arsenal because we have our agility. We know that we're going to hit with the pulping, so at a minimum, we're looking at 12 go again dominate. If Jarl has the defense reaction, it does not take go again away from pulping because it is getting go again from the agility. It has go again no matter what Jarl blocks with. And if we pitch our blue agile windup, we float a resource. So if we draw into a wild ride and discard E-strike, then we can just Mandible Claw for 3 and then Arsenal Wild Ride. If we keep our E-strike and discard a Wild Ride, then we have the option to Mandible Claw and Arsenal a Wild Ride, or if Jarl blocks pulping with Stalagmite, we float a resource, we can play the E-strike, come in for 7. We could even come in for 5 and draw a card knowing that we're going to draw a Wild Ride. So what that means is I don't want to block this. I want to take 5 and pay the Frostfang effect by pitching my yellow agile windup. We could block this from hand. We could block with E-strike and yellow agile windup. On our turn, we pitch blue agile windup to play pulping, draw a discard. If Jarl blocks with Stalagmite, then we just Arsenal a Wild Ride. If Jarl doesn't block with Stalagmite, we could think about pitching that Wild Ride to attack with Mandible Claw, but we can afford to give 5 life here, and we will get to pay to avoid discarding. I clicked the wrong button. We're going to have to go back to the start of the turn. Reading comprehension is very hard. Do I want to block with armor here? Absolutely not. There is a world where we could block with armor, but I'm really interested in not helping Jarl on his quest to give us Frostbite after destroying our armor. I don't want to let him play Frozen to Death and actually have it do the thing. I don't want him to get extra value out of Unforgetting Unforgiving and be able to tutor a Mangle. So it is very important that I hold my armor for as long as I can. Play the pulping here, pitch our blue agile windup, come in for 12 with go again dominate, make a might on the back end. We discard a yellow Wild Ride. Here we are immediately rewarded for not having blocked with armor, as Jarl would get to tutor a Mangle with Unforgetting Unforgiving. And Jarl giving us Stalagmite here is actually pretty lucky that we have this E-strike still, where we can come in for 7. Again, there's a world where we E-strike for 5, draw a card, knowing that the top card of our deck is a Wild Ride. At least I think it is. But we've only seen 1 Plow Under from Jarl. We haven't seen any Command and Conquers. And it just looks a little better if we don't have an arsenal here. We even see the Plow Under in Jarl's hand. Now, at the same time, talking about the danger of Plow Under, if we arsenal a Wild Ride, there are 2 things to consider. 1, what is Jarl's Earth count without clicking his graveyard? The fact that he at least has Unforgetting Unforgiving means that he is short an Earth and an action. I don't believe he could decompose here. And even if he could, we're looking at Plow Under for 2, which, sick. I'm stoked if Jarl comes in with a 2-card 2, even if it does bottom my arsenal. But the Command and Conquer is a real thing to worry about, so I think the E-strike for 7 there isn't as obvious as I treated it in this game, just because we knew what was on top of our deck. Now, if we don't know what's on top of our deck, I hate E-strike draw a card because my Kayo list plays 21 blues, and I really don't want to arsenal any of them. But anyway, back to this double fused Oakenold. So we know that Jarl is sitting on a Plow Under and a Channeling Frigid. Again, without checking Jarl's graveyard, I don't know how close he is to decompose. I'm kind of assuming that he's going to Arsenal the Plow Under and keep a blue to pay for it, but we would have to check his graveyard to confirm that. We kind of just can't deal with this Oakenold, but we have a few options no matter what happens. So if we end up bottoming our yellow and keeping 2 reds, we either play Cast Bones and Arsenal Wild Ride or Weakest Link. Our worst case scenario is we keep Weakest Link and Wild Ride, and in that case, we can pitch our Tunic, use our Tunic and pitch a Weakest Link to at least come in for 3 with a Mandible Claw and Arsenal a Wild Ride. Our best case scenario is probably keeping Cast Bones and one of these 2 reds, preferably the Wild Ride, so that we know that we have Go again. But I don't think I'm going to block this. Now, we could block it with the Weakest Link and be happy with any of these other 3 cards. Either we Arsenal a Wild Ride or we play a Cast Bones. But I think it is fine to just take the 9 here and hope that we keep Cast Bones and something else. We don't. We are going to bottom the Cast Bones first. Kayo doesn't shuffle, so if we can just put attacks under our Cast Bones, not that I think the game is going to go that long. Checking Jarl's graveyard now, we do see 2 Earth cards and an action in here, 2 actions at this point. So I'm less interested in attacking with Mandible Claw and arsenaling the Wild Ride. I want to just get my value, so play Wild Ride, pitch Wild Ride, put another attack under this Cast Bones that we'll draw into in 61 cards. It also makes a Might, so we're sending 7. We are making a Might on the back end, and we are not letting Jarl get value out of what I assume is an Arsenal to Plow Under. So Wild Ride here just seems good. We do hit an attack off the top. We make our Might. See how Jarl wants to deal with Wild Ride for 7 Go again. Of course, there is nothing coming behind this. The Go again doesn't really matter. If this yellow Wild Ride was a blue, then I would be happy to Tunic Mandible Claw as the follow-up here. As it is, we don't get to do that, but we do get to sit on our Tunic in the case of a blue Winter's Bite, which, based on this Jarl being more of a mid-range build, as apparent by the Stalagmite, the Frostfang, it is very likely that Jarl does play blue Winter's Bite in this build. So, always good to just sit on your Tunic for that. If you can avoid having to pitch a card, then you are very ahead in this matchup. As soon as you get to just blank the first Winter's Bite, that's pretty good. We do see Jarl sink a card here with the Crown of Providence, but it isn't his arsenal. So that might tell us the arsenal actually isn't Plow Under. It could also tell us that 3 of the 4 cards in Jarl's hand are playable on this turn, and he just needed the 4th card to maybe be a blue instead of a red, or maybe needed an attack instead of something else. But it does make me feel a little more like maybe this arsenal is the Channeling Frigid. Maybe it isn't the Plow Under. We've got a Felling of the Crown coming in for what will be 4. We will have to bottom a card from our hand. Jarl also needs to bottom a card from his hand. Still not sure what the arsenal is, because we didn't have an arsenal and Jarl didn't have an ice card to pitch. So there really is not an incentive for him to play Plow Under or Channeling Frigid. So we're still unclear on what this card is. What do we want to bottom to the Felling? Well, if we're still playing around this Plow Under, then what we are probably bottoming is Beast Within. We're going to block the Felling with Clash of Might, assume that we win the Clash, make a second Might, and then send Bear Fangs for what is very likely to be 10, and make a Might on the back end. That is in fact what happens. We see that our Bear Fangs is also going to hit. We have a Pack Hunt on the top of our deck, so Bear Fangs will get its +2 power. We do know that Jarl is sitting on another Felling of the Crown. Would love, thank you, if I could check his graveyard. We see 1 Earth card and 2 actions technically, but one of them is an Earth action. So Jarl does need to block with another Earth card in order to turn on Felling. He cannot decompose at this time, and he only has 2 Earth cards in Banish. So right now we're looking at a felling for 4 with no decompose effect. That's great news for us. It makes Jarl's turn a little more awkward, as maybe he is holding on to some cards that he would prefer not to block with, but is now in a position where he needs to block in order to turn on felling, and instead just blocks with felling, which I'm all for. We push 5 damage over the top. We also get a felling out of Jarl's hand, so we've seen 2 fellings at this point. Jarl playing the Channel Lake Frigid out of Arsenal, so we know that he bottomed the Plow Under with his Crown of Providence. I believe at this point we've seen 2 Plow Unders. I would need to check his banish, but I believe that he banished one to decompose. Still have yet to see a Command and Conquer. So we're looking at a Channel Lake Frigid for, well, just sitting on the board. And then coming in with a Titan's Fist for 4. We have a pretty interesting decision on how we want to block this. I mean, we could just not block it. That definitely seems wrong. We can play E-Strike, pitch Riled Up, bottom Bear Fangs, come in for 8, not make a Might. That just seems wrong. We could block the hammer with Riled Up, play Bear Fangs, pitch Riled Up, and just hope that we either keep our E-Strike or discard our E-Strike but draw into another red attack. I think that's what I really want to do here. The fact that we cannot use our Tunic for free because of the Channel Lake Frigid means that we lose some flexibility as far as like E-Strike, pitch Riled Up, bottom Bear Fangs, Tunic Mandible Claw, which would be a 3-card 9. Isn't terrible. I think just the fact that we have a blue and we have a Bear Fang says that that's what I'm going to do, which means that we can either overblock the Titan's Fist for 6 with Riled Up and E-Strike, which just seems wrong, or we block for 3 with a Riled Up and just hope that we don't draw a discard into a blue that we don't want to put into our arsenal. So if I'm making this call now, I'm blocking with Riled Up, I'm taking 1 point of damage down to 23, I'm sending Bear Fangs for hopefully 9, making a Might on the back end, and arsenaling either E-Strike or hopefully a red from the top of my deck. Giving the Riled Up, passing through reactions, we take 1, Jarl doesn't have anything going on, bottoms a Frost Fang to keep Channel Lake Frigid around. Here just deciding if I want to overpitch to the Bear Fangs in order to make sure that I don't draw a discard into a blue, because I will just discard whatever's on top of my deck and not have to worry about arsenaling a bad card. We do get what is the best case scenario here, where we discard the Clash of Might that we just drew, but even if we discarded the E-Strike and still had a Clash of Might, that's fine. It's a 2 for 6. But we do get the best of both worlds, where we keep our E-Strike and we'll be able to arsenal that. Hopefully Jarl can't keep Channel Lake Frigid around for a second turn, as we would need to pay for the E-Strike, which I really don't want to do. We do just get a Fruits of the Forest and a Rootbound Carapace out of Jarl, decomposing with the Rootbound, so covering 6 on 9 and putting 2 more Earth cards into the graveyard. Jarl will be able to decompose, though not doing it on this turn. Let's take a look at what our hand actually is. It's kind of whatever. So we do want to play this Command and Conquer, but the fact that we have a pulping means that we are going to end up taking an intellect penalty if that is just our line. So what I'm probably going to do here is block the Titan's Fist with Pack Hunt, take 1 down to 22, send E-Strike for 5 go again, bottoming pulping, and then playing Command and Conquer by pitching Send Packing. And we even have our Tunic up in case Jarl blocks with Stalagmite, where we can generate the extra resource that we need to play Command and Conquer. So this is our best line for just not taking any damage. Alternatively, we could take 4 from the Titan's Fist, go to 19, and keep Pack Hunt, and arsenal that. We haven't seen a Blood Rush Bellow from our deck yet, so just having Pack Hunt is not a terrible idea, as late game Intimidate is a really good way to try and close out a game. But I think that just blocking with it here, preventing some of that life loss, and giving us more of a buffer in the case of second fused Oaken Old or first CNC Pummel, just gives us more flexibility to draw into that Blood Rush Bellow later and fire it off without having to worry about blocking with a card from a 4-card hand and having a very suspicious Blood Rush turn. We do get Stalagmite out of Jarl. We do get to use our Tunic, which means that we are now vulnerable to Winter's Bite. But playing the CNC here is just good. Jarl could activate Flexors, but can't block with a 4-power defense reaction. We've seen 2 Unforgiving already. 1 was blocked with, 1 was pitched. As far as I know, Jarl lists are not playing 3 copies, so it seems unlikely that Jarl would have another 4 block from hand that isn't a defense reaction. He could give us Gauntlets. I don't know why Jarl would pitch a card to use Flexors instead of just blocking with a 2 block. But we get a Pummel here, which is huge, because it is 1 less Pummel that we have to deal with, though now we are going to get hit by Felling of the Crown. We are going to have to bottom a card, and this is coming in for 8. So I think the obvious bottom here is Wrecker Romp, and then the obvious turn is Send Packing, Pitch Wrecker Romp, Arsenal Pulping. And we... so this is interesting. I like this line, and I'll tell you why. So we bottom the Pulping because we want to mitigate some damage. We're going to use our Wrecker Romp here and our first charge of Apex Bonebreaker. Again, we've seen 2 Unforgiving from Jarl. We can assume that there is not a 3rd copy, just based on our knowledge of Jarl deck lists. Jarl is at 9, can't really afford to take a turn off to play Frozen to Death with 3 cards. So if we block for 5 here, we only take 3, we go down to 19, but more importantly, we make a Might with our Bonebreaker, which means that our Sandpacking comes in for 7. And because it's coming in for 7, Jarl has to give us a 3 block and a defense reaction. And if Jarl doesn't have the defense reaction, then he has to give us 2 cards and Tunic, or 3 cards from hand, in order to keep whatever the arsenal is. So I really like this play. And we can't make this play if we bottom a Wrecker Romp rather than a Pulping. So I think this was a really good line from me. We're also continuing to play around the fact that we have not seen Command and Conquer yet. I don't know if... I assume that Jarl is playing them. Sandpacking hits here, which is great, because Jarl is just out and Oakenold. Hey, it's a Command and Conquer. And this is the traditional, tale as old as time, Command and Conquer, floating resource, Spring Tunic is up, Jarl has a card in hand. And we know that it isn't a defense reaction, and we can probably safely assume that it isn't a 3 block. Oakenold is just a very good card, so I think if Jarl could protect it, he would. So the fact that Jarl kept these 3 cards and lost an Oakenold tells me that this is 100% Pummel. The question is, do we care about that? So we could just put Fleshbag in front of the CNC, intimidate away this Pummel, take 4 from the CNC, Jarl gets his Pummel back. But then, why do we care about that? We're going to play this Bear Fangs, we're going to pitch a blue. We are hoping to turn one of the blues in our hand into a red with Bear Fangs so that we can arsenal it. But then we just have the threat of this Pummel in Jarl's arsenal. We can't touch it on our next turn. We also have an open equipment slot because we blocked with Fleshbag. So instead of blocking with Fleshbag, what if we just put Assault and Battery in front of the Command and Conquer? We block for 3. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it isn't Pummel. We take 3, we go to 16. We fire back Bear Fangs. We hope to turn a Smash Instinct into a red, and if we don't, then Smash Instinct is probably one of the better blues to put in our arsenal, aside from Run Roughshod. And if it is CNC Pummel, Jarl loses his Tunic, can't use Tunic to pay for Flexors, is down 2 Pummels. We discard a card that we don't care about because we get to play off Arsenal and be insulated from more CNCs and Plowlanders. That just seems like a better plan to me. We can afford to let Jarl pummel us here, so let's just do it. And we still have our Fleshbag up for the next hand that Jarl shows us that definitely has a pummel in it. So If I'm making this call, I'm blocking the CNC with Assault and Battery, I'm expecting to get pummeled, and when I do get pummeled, I'm going to discard one of these two Smash Instincts, and I'm going to use the second one to pitch for Bear Fangs, which will probably come in for 7, threatening lethal, and we'll make a Might on the back end. And there we have the pummel. So we'll take 7, we'll go down to 12, we don't care about getting pummeled, we don't care about getting CNC'd, and we just return lethal damage with a 2-card 8 and banks a point of power for our next turn. We're still just waiting on a Blood Rush. We've got a Pulping left that can present lethal damage with Dominate if Jarl doesn't arsenal a defense reaction. We still have Send Packings, we still have our CNC, we have the ability to Fleshbag away one of Jarl's cards if we think he's going to react, stick it in the arsenal, and then CNC it. We have a lot of really good lines left in our deck, and we have a life lead, and we have armor that we can start to cash in. I still don't want to open up an armor slot if I can, meaning that if I'm going to block with Fleshbag or Bonebreaker, it has to be for a pretty damn good reason, but just giving the first half of Scabskin Leathers here, not a bad idea. We've got Jarl blocking for 3 right now. Let's see if he passes to reactions, which would tell us that he very likely has a defense reaction, or maybe he is just going to give us more cards from hand in order to mitigate some life loss. You know, if he gives us 3 cards here to block 7 and then just Titan Fists for 4, I'm pretty happy with that because I'm probably going to be able to block and then return a 2-card 9, or we take 4 down to 8 and return 4 cards with something like a Wild Ride or a Blood Rush. We are just looking at a Titan's Fist for 3, pitching Seeds of Tomorrow, which I don't mind seeing. This looks like a pretty easy block with Clash of Might. Make a Might, go up to 2, send Pack Hunt for 8, threatening lethal, and also intimidating away a card that Jarl might have wanted to block with. The question is, are we pitching Run Roughshod or Smash Instinct to pay for Pack Hunt, meaning which of the 2 blues are we sticking in Arsenal? The safer one is probably Run Roughshod. We've only seen 3 Wild Rides and 2 Pulpings, meaning we have 4 cards left in our deck that can enable Run Roughshod, especially off of one of them and a blue. But at the same time, like I was saying, Smash Instinct is just a good card to have in Arsenal, especially with a Blood Rush, which we have not seen yet. So I don't hate this line either. I'm a fan of arsenaling Smash Instinct and just waiting until we can put a Cast Bones or a Blood Rush together. Really interesting to see Jarl use the Flexors here. I'm not sure what the line was instead of just blocking with Fruits of the Forest, but I don't hate seeing it. Got a Titan's Fist coming in for 4. This is an interesting thing to need to block around. I believe the line is just block with Erase Face and Beast Within. We overblock, but we can't use 4 cards. I am enough ahead in this game that I don't need to use Leathers. I can just send Swing Big for 8. Hopefully get 2 cards out of Jarl. If he gives us 3 cards to make a Quicken, that's great, because there's no way that he can use the Quicken with just 2 cards. So he would probably just need to pass the turn. This just seems like the best line, and we continue to wait for Blood Rush. As soon as we get to fire off our first Blood Rush, especially if we have a Wild Ride in the hand, we're easily winning the game. We get the 3rd Channeling Frigid, we get Crumble to Eternity, which is nice. It means that Jarl is not going to double fuse Oakenold. We've got a Winter's Bite for 1. Here we will use our Tunic. Our hand is pretty damn good. If we can block with Cast Bones or Erase Face, then we get to pitch the other one to play Blood Rush, and are guaranteed to discard Beast Within. Now, what we could have done here, which I'm only now seeing, is not used Tunic to pay for the Winter's Bite and chosen to discard our Beast Within, draw a card off the top of our deck. But I think using the Tunic here is fine. We will get to start rebuilding it on our next turn, and we still have our Beast Within for a Blood Rush. We've got Jarl attacking with Titan's Fist for 7, which will make a Frostbite if it hits. So we have interesting choices to make. We could give some armor, so like Fleshbag, Scabskin, Cast Bones. Covers the 7, but it does open an armor slot. We have not seen Pulse of Ice and Loft yet, and we've only seen one Blizzard. I don't know if this Jarl is on 1, 2, or 3, but if he has more and we go for the Blood Rush, and he plays a Blizzard or a Pulse, then we get a Frostbite in our Fleshbag slot, which is going to seriously hamper our turn. So what we can do instead is just block with Blood Rush, Beast Within, Erase Face for 8, and then play Cast Bones. And if we can hit 6 on top of our deck, we make an Agility, and our Smash Instinct will come in for 11 Intimidate Go Again, which is a really good way to start a turn against a 2-health opponent. Or if our Cast Bones does not hit 6 mites, it's because there's either another Cast Bones or more likely a Blood Rush in the top 6 cards of our deck. And if we can then draw that Blood Rush, then we just win the game, because we get to send Mandible Claw for like 10 and then follow up with Smash Instinct for 7. So we don't only hit 5 mites, we do find a Blood Rush. We know that the top 2 cards of our deck are a blue Mighty Windup and a red Bear Fangs. So if we can block with like the weakest link and maybe some armor, whatever, then we pitch our Assault and Battery, play Blood Rush, discard Erase Face, draw a blue and a Bear Fangs, float 2 resources, attack with Mandible Claw for 10 Go Again, have a blue to pay through Blizzard, and have a Bear Fangs to pitch into the Smash Instinct as a follow-up. So we're in a really, really good spot. The fact that it's Titan's Fist for 4, and it's just kind of butter here, icing on the cake. Gravy is the word I was looking for, Gravy Bones. We could block this with Erase Face and Scabskin Leathers, but just use the weakest link and Scabskins instead. I mean, we could use weakest link and Bone Breaker, but I don't want to open up the armor slot if I can. Again, we haven't seen a Blizzard or a Pulse of Ice and Loft yet. Don't want to open up an armor slot if I can avoid it, and I definitely can. Is there a reason to block with a Erase Face or weakest link? Not really, unless Jarl's playing Lunging Press doesn't even affect weapons, so no. We're going to Blood Rush here, we're going to draw our blue and our Bear Fangs. We're going to send a Mandible Claw for 10 with Go Again. This is going to take at least 3 cards for Jarl to not be dead. Could be Sink, Tunic, stay alive at 1. It could be Sink, pitch to Pulse, defense reaction. Here we have the Pulse, and here we're really glad that we did not open up an armor slot, as even though we are going to get to play the Smash Instinct no matter what, just in case Jarl isn't dead here, I would love to be able to arsenal a Bear Fangs. So Jarl covers the Mandible Claw for 10. We get to send Smash Instinct for 7 with Intimidate as a follow-up. There is absolutely no way that Jarl is not dead here, and we do get the good game from him. Just going to put it to bed. So, a pretty clean game. See the Pummeling Arsenal. I was really happy with this one. I thought that I played this one really well. I was just very mindful of keeping my armor slots full, not taking the obvious Fleshbag play against what was a very obvious pummel, because I correctly evaluated that I don't need to do that. I don't care if I get CNC pummeled this turn. And the deck just responded very well to what was going on. We had a good mix of blues and reds. We were always able to present something. We never drew the 4 blue hand that just says your turn is like Assault and Battery for 5, beat chest, be okay with a 4 card, 3 card 6. But this also does show that Kayo is still good at the things that Kayo is always good at, which is beating mid-range Guardian. I think he's still bad against very defensive Guardian. I think he's bad against defensive decks in general. Good luck punching through Scepter Florian with 21 defense reactions and 15 4 blocks. But against mid-range Guardian, if that style of Jarl becomes popular, or if Victor becomes a thing with High Seas printing any sort of gold support, then maybe Kayo does actually have a place in that meta. I just don't think he quite has one in this meta. I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something. If so, be sure to assault and batter that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's free, it helps me out a lot. I have a Blue Sky, a Discord, and a Patreon, links to which are in the video description below. A Patreon subscription at the Arc Lightning tier or higher will get you access to the matchup guide for this deck and all of my decks forever. And if you want to conduct your own in-person daily FaB gameplay style reviews, you can use my affiliate link for the Codex Journal and the code Lupine10, Lupine10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. I will be back tomorrow with a tournament report for the ProQuest that I won with Aurora this last weekend, so check that out. And until the next time I see you on Daily FaB Gameplay, take care.